In one of the old mining regions of France, strange occurrences were happening, leading to the rise of legends about a terrifying monster that had been lurking underground for 3,000 years, slowly transforming into a dreadful creature. The year is 1965, and a young man named Amir experiences a horrific dream in which miners are dying as they try to escape from a terrifying beast. Waking up in a panic, he quickly responds to a call from a friend who reminds him that they must leave soon if they hope to find work. The two soon arrive at the recruitment point where many are gathered, hoping to secure a tough but well-paying job in the mines. The foreman stands before them, holding two stamps, one red for those deemed unsuitable and one green for those selected. As the foreman moves down the line, Amir is rejected, but in a moment of desperation, he grabs the green stamp from the foreman's hand and marks himself with several green imprints. The workers laugh at his audacity, but they decide to take him on. Amir is sent to a mining company in northern France, in the Pécule region. He is pleased, unaware that he has been assigned to the notorious fifth mine, known among the miners as the Devil's House. One day, a renowned scientist, Professor Bertier, arrives at the mine, needing to descend specifically into the fifth mine, which is typically reserved for the most dangerous offenders. As this happens, an injured miner is brought to the surface by the foreman, Roland. Bertier insists on going down into the mine with Roland. At the same time, reinforcements from Morocco arrive, and Amir is assigned to Roland's crew. He meets the other miners, and one of them, Santini, shows him the ropes. Roland assigns an experienced mentor to guide Amir and orders the descent into the mine to begin. Inside the mine, Amir feels uneasy, but like the others, he lights his headlamp and starts working with the tools. The work is grueling, and Amir injures his hand with a jackhammer. Roland sends him to the horsekeeper for assistance. Amir is taken aback when he encounters a living horse in the mine, which is also blind. He learns that this horse is the last one remaining in the mine, soon to be replaced by machinery. Later, Roland notices a rat has crawled into Amir's bag and nibbled on his lunch. He explains that rats can sense danger, which is why miners feed them. Roland hands Amir an apple in exchange for the spoiled sandwich and instructs him to continue working. After the shift, Amir feels utterly exhausted, but is determined not to quit. A week later, Roland announces that Professor Bertier will be joining them in the mine that day, and they will be well compensated for their work. The professor explains that he needs to reach a specific location, which requires the miners to blow up a wall. The group descends into the mine, and Roland assigns the task to the sapper. After the explosion, a hole appears in the floor, startling the miners. Working with voids below is hazardous. Roland, curious about the professor's intentions, questions him, but when he doesn't get an answer, he throws Bertier's notebook down the hole. The professor insists on descending first to retrieve it. The professor soon finds himself in the old mine's dungeon, with the others following. Roland recalls a local legend about the curse of Salil. According to the legend, 100 years ago, the old mine caught fire, and despite their efforts, the fire couldn't be extinguished, trapping 30 miners inside. Unable to save them, the entrance was bricked up, leaving the bodies somewhere within. As the miners explore the area, Bertier suddenly disappears. Roland splits his men into two groups, each heading in different directions to search for the professor. They call out for him, but there is no response. Suddenly, Amir's group stumbles upon a human skeleton, clutching a strange polyhedron in its hands. Amir picks it up and examines the skeleton's hands, noticing that the fingers are crushed. On the wall nearby, an inscription warns that all who enter are cursed, as they are hunted by a monster lurking in the darkness. Santini, trying to lighten the mood, cracks a joke, easing the tension among his friends. The group continues on and soon reunites with Roland's group, who have also discovered human remains. As they move forward, they notice a light ahead, which they soon realize is coming from Bertier. The miners catch up to him and demand to know why they were brought down to this place, as no one believes the excuse about collecting samples anymore. Bertier promises to explain everything if they create another passage. The sapper sets off another blast, opening the entrance to the next dungeon. Bertier rushes in, marveling at the hieroglyphs covering the walls. He begins taking samples, explaining that they date back several thousand years. While the rest of the group moves on, they come across a large pile of human bones mixed with ancient weapons. Bertier is unable to explain what happened, speculating that perhaps these were guards who once protected a sacred place. As they continue exploring, their flashlight beams reveal an ancient sarcophagus. Bertier explains that, according to legend, this could be the resting place of an ancient deity that once dwelled in these dungeons. He takes pictures of the site while Roland insists they head back. As the miners make their way toward the exit, they find that the ladder has already been set up, and the horse is waiting. But suddenly, the horse breaks free and bolts into the darkness, leaving everyone bewildered. Before they can react, a collapse occurs, blocking the entrance to the dungeon with stones. When the dust settles and the group regains their senses, they discover that Santini is seriously injured. To make matters worse, they realize there is no one left above ground, as Bertier had demanded complete secrecy for the operation. Barely able to contain his anger, Roland curses the scientist, but knows they need to focus on helping the wounded. He sends the others to search for any remaining passages, while he tends to Santini's leg. The men disperse in different directions, and as they do, Roland confides in one of the miners, sharing his suspicion that once they escape, the mine will likely be shut down and taken over by scientists. Meanwhile, Amir comes across his colleagues who have returned to the sarcophagus and are attempting to open it. He urges them not to proceed, but they ignore his pleas. Despite their efforts, the lid is too heavy and resists their brute force. Then, Amir remembers the polyhedron he found earlier. He retrieves it, notices a hole in the lid of the stone box, and inserts the polyhedron into it. A click sounds, and the lid shifts. Beneath it lies something covered with fabric, with precious ingots placed on top. The miners eagerly rush to collect the ingots, reasoning that since the mine will soon be closed, they will be left without any means of income. Amir tries to dissuade them, but they chase him away, threatening violence if he betrays them. Desperate and frightened, Amir runs off into the darkness and, sitting down by the wall, cries in despair. Back at the sarcophagus, those who remained argue about the disrespect shown to the dead, failing to notice something slowly rising from the sarcophagus. Suddenly, Amir hears wild screams and sees the miners who had desecrated the tomb running in terror. 3 of them manage to make it back to the others, trying to explain that something alive is chasing them. Roland is skeptical, but before he can dismiss their claims, long, bony fingers emerge from the darkness and drag one of the miners away. The rest flee in horror and soon discover a bloody trail leading to the lifeless body of their unfortunate comrade. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Bertier takes their warnings seriously and admits that they have about 10 hours before anyone outside will check on them. He reveals that he knows little about this place, only that it belonged to an unknown civilization that existed for centuries. This civilization believed in a deity from the sarcophagus, who was said to have descended from the sky over 3,000 years ago, and they worshipped him out of fear. At this moment, Amir interrupts, explaining that the object they found isn't a sarcophagus but a prison. He offers to draw a map of the dungeon and show them where everything is located. Suddenly, everyone remembers Santini and rushes to the debris where he was left. Meanwhile, the wounded man hears strange sounds echoing through the corridor. He lights up the area with his lamp and suddenly sees something massive with long, clawed hands. Terrified, he screams. When the other miners arrive, they find only the empty stretcher where their comrade had been lying. As they shine their lights into the shaft, they catch sight of the creature, holding Santini in its claws. In a horrifying moment, the monster tears him apart in front of them. Enraged, the men charge at the creature, but it releases Santini's remains and vanishes into the darkness. Unfortunately, they are too late to save their friend, who dies in their arms. Determined to stop the monster, the miners decide to lure it into one of the tunnels and blow it up with the remaining explosives. However, they face a dilemma. Should they risk their lives to kill the creature or escape while they still can? Bertier suggests returning to the grave to study the inscriptions, reasoning that they might reveal an exit, as the ancient inhabitants must have had a way to access this place. The miners head back to the grave and soon discover a spot where human skeletons lie between iron bars. At first, it seems like a prison, but Bertier explains that these were volunteers who sacrificed themselves to the god. At least, that's what the inscription on the wall says. As they venture further, they find blood splattered on the walls, and inside the burial chamber, there's a whole pool of it. Bertier volunteers to go in first, with Amir accompanying him. Inside, they find only the corpse of a horse, but as soon as they enter, the professor pulls a secret lever, causing a stone to seal the entrance. Amir screams in terror, and Bertier, seemingly unfazed, asks if Amir really thought he could trust the miners. He reveals that once he finds the way out, the miners would likely kill him to cover their tracks. Bertier and Amir start reading the inscriptions on the walls and learn that there are 9 such graves scattered around the world. According to the text, at the right time, the sleepers within these graves will awaken and must be fed by volunteers until a destined lord arrives to kill the monsters and take a place of dominance. Amir then discovers a palindrome, a phrase that reads the same backward and forward. This leads the professor to realize that the entrance is also the exit. As Amir rushes to the lever, the corpse of the horse begins to move, and a monstrous being rises from it, spreading its terrifying arms. The professor, thrilled by the encounter, steps into the creature's embrace, rejoicing at what he believes to be the first contact with an alien being. Amir watches in horror as the professor dies in the monster's grip. Then he runs to pull the lever. The miners on the other side help Amir escape and quickly shut the door behind him. Amir promises to lead everyone out using the professor's notes, unaware that the monster is already forcing the door open. Soon, the group reaches a crossroads. While Amir studies the notes, they suddenly hear unsettling sounds. Roland suggests turning off their lights, plunging them into silence. But when they light the lamps again, the monster is dangerously close. It kills one miner with a single blow and drags another into the darkness. Amir and Roland manage to escape, but Roland, furious and desperate after losing all his friends, demands that Amir find a way out. Amir suddenly warns Roland that if the monster escapes, it will destroy the entire village. Roland, overcome with grief and anger, declares that Amir means nothing to him and insists they go their separate ways. However, Amir explains the significance of the palindrome and points in a specific direction. Following this path, they soon arrive at a new bone graveyard, which turns out to be the resting place of long-lost miners. Roland realizes that the only exit was once here, but was bricked up when the mine collapsed. However, they discover a sacrificial well that leads straight to the surface. Amir immediately understands their destination, but before they can act, the monster's hands appear through the debris, grabbing Amir by the legs and dragging him under the stones. Roland, helpless to intervene, is left alone. In a moment of despair, he opens the professor's notes, gathers all the remaining explosives, and heads back to find the well, which is filled with human bones. Meanwhile, Amir regains consciousness and finds himself facing the monster, which is now seated on a throne, holding one of the miners in its grasp. Desperate, Amir pleads with the creature to release his friend, while his hand searches the ground for an iron knife. The monster suddenly tears off the miner's head, which, to Amir's horror, begins speaking to him on behalf of the alien creature, demanding to be shown the way out and calling Amir Lord. It dawns on Amir that the monster grows stronger with each life it takes, absorbing the essence of its victims and transforming into a deity. Refusing to allow the creature to continue its reign of terror, Amir plunges the knife into the chest of the alien, determined to end its life and stop the cycle of death. As the creature screams in pain, Amir takes off running and finds the well where Roland is already climbing. Overjoyed at seeing Amir, Roland reaches out and helps him up the tall vertical shaft. As they climb, they carefully insert the remaining explosives into the crevices. However, the monster quickly catches up and begins climbing after them. Realizing they can't outrun it, Roland asks Amir to turn the handle of the explosive detonator. Understanding that their fate is sealed and they will die along with the alien, Amir frantically turns the handle, but nothing happens. Roland then descends to where Amir is, takes the detonator box, and turns the handle himself. Seeing that everything is set, he encourages Amir. Together, they grip the handle tightly, triggering an explosion that consumes both the alien and the miners, forever sealing the entrance to the cursed dungeon. The story, while not aspiring to profound contemplation, delivers an intense experience, encapsulating the age-old tale of human greed and the relentless pursuit of knowledge and glory. It serves as a thrilling reminder that even in the depths of the earth, battling a monster, it's crucial to hold onto one's humanity.